So, John, you're the next speaker, and he's going to talk about excimer, laser, keratoconus, Athens, Crete, and Trek. You should be fair for every protocol, eh? Don't be biased.
I think after what we heard, my talk is a little outdated, so you can go home, have dinner. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy to see that this room is packed. We have standing room only to just show how important keratoconus is. These are my financial disclosures, and I do not represent any company, nor do I have a financial interest directly or indirectly of any of the products I will present to you. I do consult for several companies, but my financial interest or my medical interest is in how these patients do. And the problem with keratoconus is this. This is a 23-year-old young gentleman who flew to us from Abu Dhabi 2 weeks ago with his father, who's a commercial pilot, and says, I want to be a pilot. He's 20/20 uncorrected, and these are his corneas. This is a problem with keratoconus. Even a very advanced keratoconic cornea does not affect visual acuity. So we are crippled because there's about 5 keratoconic patients in the room right now, and you don't know it. So if you want to take something from this talk, once you're on the floor, get your epithelium, your cornea scanned, and find out if you have keratoconus or not. It's very important in teenagers. The human cornea, as I mentioned, and the research that I did, changes this little the first 2 years after birth, so it flattens a little bit. And these are large patient studies. And it probably changes in biomechanical strength, but we don't have a way to measure it. The dimensions of the cornea and its refractive behavior remains the same. Now, we know cross-linking has been combined almost with everything: food, riboflavin, intracorneal rings. We've reported early on, back in 2006, how with ring segments are synthetic, you have a lot of problems with melts and extrusions, etc. And now the ophthalmic society is moving away from synthetic rings and to allograft rings, and we have reported back in 2018 using xenografts, xenograph rings and cross-linking. We have reported on refractive effects of cross-linking back in 2013, and I'm very happy to see this coming into fruition by other investigators as well. I'm going to discuss about using the excimer laser as a means to normalize the surface as well as create a window to achieve better cross-linking. And again, the diagnosis is key. And I'm a big believer, this was a patient that came to me referred to have refractive surgery, 51 years old, everything looks normal. This is the epithelium. So this is clearly a keratoconic eye that the epithelium is able to hide the change because it's remodeling and it's not a contact lens wear, so it's hiding the keratoconus. Of course, if you're careful, this patient does has a Fleischer ring, both from cobalt blue and plain slit on biomicroscopy. This was a post-LASIK ectasia case that I consulted in New York as an expert witness for the amount that the judgment was going to be given within the city of New York City. And this was also determined by several corneal specialists as being post-LASIK ectasia. Careful, because the posterior corneal curvature has not changed, and this is a decentered mixed astigmatic ablation. So not everything that looks like ectasia is ectasia. So this is my pro. You don't cross-link everything that looks ectatic. You have to document it with whatever is your daily routine. And this story goes way back in 2003, where we started using topographic treatments to treat irregular eyes, and we published this in 2005. And we did, and it took me a very long time to be accepted rather by a peer-reviewed journal to publish applying topographic treatment in a keratoconic eye. I do realize that it's counterintuitive to thin an already thin cornea, but the Athens protocol has come to be what it is because its efficacy and because it works synergistically. The Greek protocol, let's call it. That's not choral. If it's Athens, Crete, let's say the Greek protocol, so everybody's happy. I know George has done a lot of work, and between me and George, we probably published 80% of the world literature on post-keratoconic eyes treated with a combination treatment. So for me, keratoconus, family history, scan the parents. One of them will have a suspicious cornea, maybe both if you're Greek. We're working with the Children's Hospital in Greece, and they're imaging 10-year-olds, average 10-year-olds, and find that 5% of them are suspicious for keratoconus. So imagine what happens when they become teenagers, those 10-year-olds. So we're dealing with a different crowd than the one that we heard, 1 in 600. 1 in 10, and we published this, 1 in 10 Greeks in their 70s, when we do their cataract surgery, have topography documented keratoconus. So we have a different view, the Greek of us in the room, or the people in this region, Greece, Turkey, the Middle East, than the rest of the world. So for me, family history, so how are the parents, what's the residual, how thick the cornea is, what the vision is. It's very difficult cross-linking a patient's 20/20, because they're not going to be likely 20/20 the day after the cross-linking procedure. Also, the long-term effects of cross-linking, we saw some very nice data of selectively cross-linking different areas of the cornea. Remember, this will continue to work as the patient ages. So this will continue to change the dynamic within the cornea. So those corneas, I bet, Ferry, 10 years down the line will flatten and flatten and flatten and flatten as time goes by. So hopefully we'll be here, I'll probably be retired at the time, to discuss how these eyes turn to be highly hyperopic. We're dealing with them now. And we've reported almost 1,000 eyes treated with a combination treatment through a lot of parameter documentation. This was a seminal paper showing that sequential treatments, or cross-linking first and then lasering, is inferior to doing it combined, because you do get an added effect. And we have reported on 10-year outcomes with the Athens protocol, and showing that although you're getting the sweet flattening effect initially the first year, and these patients are very happy, some of them, a small percentage, 2%, keep flattening and flattening and flattening. You may end up with about 30 doctors of flattening way back, way ahead. So there's no magic treatment in keratoconus. Anything you do will have a cost. And this is somebody's eyes. So you have to be as conservative as possible, not as conservative as this patient coming to me, or any of these great cornea surgeons in the room and having a cornea transplant. So treat keratoconus, avoid a cornea transplant, have a happy patient. That's life, full of conflicts. And of course, we're seeing the drastic improvement in the first 3 months, but there is a continuum flattening as time goes by. It's probably the cornea degenerates or matures and the collagen changes. The protocol currently is a customized ablation. And again, most of the treatment is done on the hyperopic end here, so at the thinnest part of the cornea. A PDK, which is pivotal, because it does create a window of 9 millimeters that the riboflavin will penetrate, and you'll be able to cross-link. We publish this ad nauseum. The post-op care in the surface ablation and cross-linking is the most important, than the protocol that you use or when you cross-link. The post-op care is key, because the most cornea scarring is coming through regular healing in these eyes. So invariably, all patients we use homologous or autologous serum. UV protection, very important in this part of the world. It's sunny all the time. Today was forecasted to rain. You see how happily changed weather in Athens. Vitamin C, still a lot of patients scarred due to the UV light. We've even reported our data with pediatric patients, same theme. And again, caution here, these eyes with time seem to flatten, 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 flatten. So we're cross-linking idiots. And maybe I'm the biggest one of all, because we use one dose for everyone, thinking that somebody's cornea is going to stay the same today and 20 years later. So there's more unknowns on this than knowns. And yes, we have published on using a customized approach with the then Avidro customized treatment, and showed that this does give a refractive effect. But now we know that this change, this differential in cross-linking in the cornea, will not be stable with time. With time, it will act as an added change in the cornea dynamics, and probably induce more flattening as the years goes by. Is that the end of the day? Would you have to transplant a super flat cornea? We don't know. You may be able at that time to do a hyperopic type ablation. And our last work has been with ray tracing and trying to address the complex optics of the keratoconic eye. And the beauty with ray tracing is, we don't have the time to go through this. This is a very new technology on imaging and determining lower and higher aberrations. It's developed by Alcon, and we had the luck to be the first team globally to work with it since 2019. And of course, I used it in keratoconic eyes as it had the advantage in the top are topo-guided approaches on the 2 eyes of one patient. These are the ray tracing eye approaches on the same patient. The difference is you don't have treatment over the cornea area because ray tracing views the keratoconic cornea as a tilted cornea. And that's the beauty because it looks at whole eye optics. We reported this in the Journal of Cornea several years ago. But again, the key thing on my talk in combining these treatments are you need to follow these eyes personally. These are not patients you see a month later because these delayed epithelial healing eyes, this, for instance, healing here, we thought this patient was doing well. We told him, okay, you're comfortable without the bandage lens. Let's see how it does. It comes 3 days later like this. What is this? This is the epithelium having difficulty healing, creating a necrotic ring. And if you let that go, this will rarely develop into severe scars. You need to scrape this, create a large epithelial defect, pamper this eye in order to overcome this. Allow these patients to develop, even with plain cross-linking, salts like highlighting nodules. You need to be very aggressive with those to scrub them. Here on this left hand with a sterile Q-tip. And again, lubrication, bandage, contact lens, and autologous serum. Hold off steroids where needed because these are also steroids as your helper to avoid scarring, but also a poison for the ophthalmic surface, and be very vigorous removal. We published how this does change the life of young patients. And I think the seminal paper, half of these publications are mine, half are the community team from, I don't know, Crete, Miami, Switzerland, and Athens. Fortunately, now we have the luck to have a peer and a very esteemed colleague in Athens, so we can bounce things from each other. And you see here, I took it upon me to include all the investigators that have reported the combination treatment, and we all found the same. Within problems, combined into gives you an added synergistic effect of getting normalization of the cornea, significant flattening, and a very small percentage of these eyes, under 1 in 1,000, doesn't need corneal transplant. So, in conclusion, I want to dedicate this talk to my mentor, Klaus Dohlmann, who passed away last year at 102, with his brain fully intact. I think that's the blessing. There's many ways to approach keratoconus. My message to you is we do have the tools. Many of the presentations we heard is a way to treat it. We need to diagnose it, and we're crippled because vision is what will bring the patients to us, and visual acuity changes come very late in the game. So we need, as clinicians, it's our responsibility to advocate for early screening for keratoconus. For me, it's crazy that young Greeks do not get screened for keratoconus at 17 as junior or senior high school students, because we know that if we image it and we find it, we can freeze it. So we do have the vaccine, we're not using it. So let's take that message. Field maps are key. And again, thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for having me.